I have another review for you today. This is 1928's The Godless Girl. This is a Kino classic release on Blu-ray, and this is Cecil DeMille's final silent movie. It was a silent film in the age of talkies, so it may not have gotten the appreciation in its time that it deserved, but Kino Classics is keeping it alive. So thank you to Kino Lorber for sending this to me for review. Very much appreciated. This is kind of long for a silent movie. It's 119 minutes, and it has English intertitles. And there is a audio commentary that film historian Anthony Slide did on this. There's a commentary track. And I did listen to it. I watched this all the way through. It was a first-time watch for me. And then I immediately started listening to the commentary track. Didn't listen to the whole thing, got about halfway through, but there was a lot of good information. I did learn some stuff from Mr. Slide. This is restored in 4K by Photoplay Productions and backed by an orchestral score by Carl Davis. The Godless Girl. The final silent feature by cinema's greatest showman and moralizer, Cecil B. DeMille. I saw the title of this and I was like, I have to see what this is about. I knew nothing about it, but I was like, a heretic like me needs to check it out, I suppose. In 1928, schools were very Christian. There was no separation of church and state. It was all, schools were very Christian. The Godless Society, they're handing out pamphlets. They're pretty provocative pamphlets for the time. It's not anything that we would find shocking today in this godless society. Like I said, I am an atheist. I was interested in this title, but do I think that that's necessarily a good thing? My friend Shane on Instagram sent me a quote recently that said, from the never-ending story, it said, people who have no hopes are easy to control. And I said, that fits in perfectly with this. Nothing against atheists. I am one. But this, I think, is a really good example of how moving in a godless direction as a nation was not necessarily a positive thing. The story here, so we have Lena Basquette plays Judy. Bob is played by George Drea, who we know as Tom Keene from Western fame. And then there is Bob is the Christian, Judy is the atheist. She is handing out pamphlets, proselytizing atheism in her school. Bob is the class president, and he has basically his Christian friends storm a Godless Society meeting that Judy is holding, and there's a riot that breaks out. There is a stairwell with it's an open stairwell where the middle is like open and you can see down to the bottom. That was one thing that I heard from the commentary that was very interesting, was that there was a camera on a lift. It pans up and down like a dissected cut through the different floors, so you get to see all the action going on. It's so interesting seeing all of this action. There is a riot going on, the Godless Society versus the Christians, and they are fighting. It is so physical, but you don't hear any of the scuffle or any of the struggle. It is just the orchestra playing. And it was, I know that everybody is well aware that silent film is extremely expressive because it has to be. That's how it's telling the plot of the story, is through expression. But that scene in and of itself was absolutely amazing, and it was pretty much the beginning of the movie, the intro. So it was a lot of action, and then the banister, the railing breaks, and then a girl falls to her death. That's not a spoiler, because that was pretty much setting up the entire rest of the movie. Judy and Bob's friend Bozo, what was his name? I don't know his name. I think his name is Bozo. I don't know, something. And then they all are sentenced to juvenile detention, reform school, or something, reform school. So there's a boys and girls reform school, and they are sent there together. There is an absolutely ruthless guard, played by Noah Beery. There was actually a part in the reform school They go there. It's basically like they're joining the military, how regimented it was, very strict. There was one card that came up that said, this is based on true, like real reform schools. There are places like this that exist. And they were being very ruthless to these kids. They were, at one point, Bob was placed in solitary confinement, and he was only given bread and water. And he was sprayed excessively with a fire hose. It was pretty brutal. They get beaten. It's very ruthless. Judy befriends a girl named Mame, I think. I don't know how you say it because they don't say it to each other. It's Mame. I don't know how you say that. So I don't know. I guess let me know. But she was in reform school previously, and Judy meets her, and they both kind of have like a love interest in Bob. So, Bob and Judy, even though they come from different belief systems, they have a thing for each other, and their love blossoms on garbage duty. So, and I thought that was interesting too, because they're sentenced to garbage duty for acting out, and there's this chain link fence that separates the boys and the girls side of the reform school, and they are taking these wheelbarrow full of garbage to this hog pen. The garbage duty is feeding garbage to the hogs. And I was like, that is so historically significant, because before modern landfills in America, that was a legitimate way that people disposed of waste. Waste companies in this country, a lot of them began as collecting trash and feeding it to hogs, hog farms. So the more you know about the trash industry, I'm here for you. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was really awesome. There is also a scene where they have to escape reform school. And how do they do it? They do it on a meat delivery truck. Even today, trucks that go in and out of jails, stuff like that, they have very thorough checks. They have mirrors that they do, sweeps all over. They inspect these trucks to make sure there's no stowaways. They didn't do that in 1928 whenever somebody distracted the guard by dropping a gross of eggs. So, Bob and Judy make an escape. They escape to freedom, but they are later tracked down. So they end up going back to school, and they have so many trials and tribulations, and that's pretty much the bulk of the movie, is their struggle in reform school. But the end, I won't spoil the ending of the movie, because it is I feel like this is a very important movie to American history, honestly. But the ending is, the climax is a fire at the reform school. Bob and Judy are faced with the moral dilemma of, do we let our guard die in a fire, this guy that ruined our lives and tortured us, our torturer, do we let him die in a fire, or do we save ourselves? They could definitely make it to safety if they leave him behind, but they are faced with this moral dilemma. What do we do? So you have Bob and his Christianity and Judy and her atheism. They have to make this moral decision together. And that is quite fascinating. There's times where Bob is seen questioning his faith, and it seems that that's because he is upset. How could this happen? How could these circumstances happen to me? And it seems that it leads him to question things. Conversely, Judy is left thinking maybe there is more. The girl in the beginning that fell to her death died in Judy's arms, and that stuck with her. And she's now conflicted, thinking that can't be all there is. There has to be more than that. Judy finally feels love, so she finds Bob, and she's like, this is amazing. There is something more. She discovers what love is, and that now suddenly there's meaning to life for her. So she discovers that there's something more. This whole process of discovery and change that they both go through together, there's a lot to it. Then there's the whole side of Christianity and atheism, how it exists together in society, how Christianity exists in schools. And obviously, pretty much doesn't anymore. That's a thing of the past. So seeing how it's so important to society in 1928, you know, you look at society in 1928 and there's a moral compass that they follow as a nation. And I know Cecil DeMille was interested in the topics of religion, and I think that that's clear in making this film. So as I said, I think it's really important to American history. It's a look at religion in everyday life 100 years ago. It's also a good representation of institutionalism. And on top of all the really important, interesting themes that this embodies, it's also just a really, really excellent film. There are so many scenes like this one right here that are just artistic. They escape, they're having this romantic moment, they're under a tree. The way that it's framed, the way that their bodies are positioned, everything is just so artistic. Like, everything is intentional, and everything is the way that the camera panned down the stairwell in the beginning. I was like, this is absolutely beautiful. There are countless reasons why I think this is an important movie. This presentation, I have to say, this picture looked great. You know, I'm watching on an older 4K TV. I'm about ready to replace it. But this Blu-ray presentation, very crisp, looked great. I have absolutely no complaints about it whatsoever. So I think it's amazing that Kino Lorber is keeping film history alive like that. I guess I need to start getting more acclimated with more Cecil DeMille films. I've seen a handful, but you know, I know that he is prolific. Ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille, from you know, Looney Tunes, pop culture, all of those things. There's a reason. There's a reason why these became pop culture. So I think that I'm really happy that I got to see it. And let me know if you have seen it or if you plan on checking it out, because it is highly recommended. You will not regret it, I assure you. So thank you again to Kino Lorber for sending this to me for review. Do check it out. Let me know what you think. I'll see you next time.